DC plane crash live updates. One black box found, 67 dead after American Airlines flight collides with military helicopter. Published by Yahoo. Rescue crews searched the Potomac River on Thursday after a passenger plane on approach to Reagan National Airport crashed after colliding with a U.S. Army helicopter near Washington, D.C., Andrew Caballero Reynolds, AFP via Getty Images. An American Airlines plane with 60 passengers and 4 crew members on board collided with a military helicopter near Washington, D.C., on Wednesday night, plunging into the Potomac River. Washington's Fire and EMS Chief John Donnelly said Thursday morning that 28 bodies were recovered from the scene, 27 passengers from the jet and 1 from the helicopter. That number grew to at least 40 bodies recovered from the Potomac River as of Thursday evening, CNN and CBS News reported, citing law enforcement sources. At this point, we don't believe there are any survivors from this accident, Donnelly said, adding that first responders were switching from a rescue operation to a recovery operation. The commercial flight from Wichita, Con, was making its approach to Reagan National Airport when the collision occurred shortly before 9 p.m., according to the Federal Aviation Administration. The Black Hawk helicopter, operating out of Fort Belvoir, VA, with a crew of 3, was on a training mission, according to the Defense Department. Washington Senator Maria Cantwell's office told CNN Thursday evening that one of 2 black boxes aboard the American flight had been recovered. Among those who died in the crash were figure skaters and their family members and coaches. U.S. Figure Skating, the national governing body for the sport, said, "Several members of our skating community were on board the flight from Kansas, returning home from the National Development Camp held in conjunction with the U.S. Figure Skating Championships." At a press briefing on Thursday, President Trump held a moment of silence for the crash victims. "We are in mourning," he said. "This has really shaken a lot of people, including people, sadly, from other nations who were on the flight." What happened Thursday? Most Americans woke up Thursday to the news of Wednesday night's fatal crash between American Airlines Flight 5342 and an Army Black Hawk helicopter at Reagan National Airport in Washington, D.C. The aviation disaster claimed the lives of 67 people, making it one of the deadliest plane crashes in U.S. history. Here's a recap of what transpired Thursday as investigators worked to recover the remains of those lost. As of Thursday evening, CNN and CBS were reporting that at least 40 bodies had been recovered from the Potomac River, citing law enforcement sources. One of 2 black box data recorders aboard Flight 5342 was recovered. A preliminary report by the Federal Aviation Administration reportedly found that staffing in the air traffic control tower at the airport was not normal at the time of the mid-air collision. Wednesday's crash came just 24 hours after a near miss between another commercial jet and a helicopter at Reagan National. American Airlines CEO Robert Isom sent a letter to employees saying the company's top priority was supporting the families who had lost loved ones. Residents of Wichita, Con, where Flight 5342 originated, held a prayer vigil to remember those killed. President Trump attempted to place blame for the crash on former President Joe Biden and diversity, equity and inclusion hiring practices at the FAA. Trump also faced criticism due to the fact that FAA Administrator Michael Whitaker stepped down on January 20th, following run-ins with Elon Musk. Trump appointed Chris Rocheleau, a longtime senior official with the FAA, to temporarily run the agency. Newly confirmed Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy faced his first real test in office, telling reporters, "It is not standard to have aircraft collide." One black box from downed American Airlines flight is recovered. One of 2 black boxes aboard American Airlines Flight 5342 was recovered on Thursday, Washington Senator Maria Cantwell's office told CNN. One day before fatal crash, a helicopter near miss was reported at Reagan National. 24 hours before Wednesday's deadly crash between an American Airlines passenger jet and an Army Black Hawk helicopter, a near miss between another helicopter and a commercial plane transpired, the Washington Post reported. As Republic Airlines Flight 4514 approached Reagan National Airport just after 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Tuesday, the plane's cockpit crew alerted the control tower that a helicopter had appeared near its flight path. "We had en route with a helicopter traffic below us," a crew member told air traffic controllers at roughly 8:05 p.m., the Post reported, using the abbreviation for a resolution advisory, which pilots use to indicate their plane is at risk of colliding with another aircraft. School superintendent. 3 students, 6 parents from Fairfax County Public Schools killed in crash. Updating her statement issued earlier in the day, Fairfax County Public Schools, FCPS, Superintendent Michelle Reed said Thursday evening that 3 students and 6 parents from FCPS were lost in Wednesday night's plane crash at Reagan National Airport. Kansas Gov says flight manifest will likely be made available tomorrow afternoon. At a Thursday press conference, Kansas Governor Laura Kelly said that the National Transportation Safety Board would likely make the manifest for American Airlines Flight 5342 available by Friday afternoon. The NTSB has not yet identified the identities of the passengers, all of whom are believed to have died in Wednesday night's crash with a Black Hawk helicopter at Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport, because it is still in the process of notifying the families of those presumed killed. There are some folks who were on that plane who were from overseas, and so that's partially the reason for the delay, Kelly said. Democratic senators who opposed 2024 FAA legislation warned of adding flights to Reagan Airport. Last May, Congress voted to add 5 new long-distance round-trip flights to Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport as part of an extensive bill authorizing $105 billion to the Federal Aviation Administration. But months earlier, in February 2024, 4 Democratic senators from Maryland and Virginia, including Senator Tim Kaine, issued a statement warning that air traffic at Reagan was already congested and that allowing that many additional incoming and outgoing flights would be reckless and gambling with the safety of everyone who uses this airport. Wichita Mayor, Kansas Governor, on the phone constantly with federal officials to investigate crash. Wichita Mayor Lily Wu and Kansas Governor Laura Kelly held a news conference Thursday afternoon to give updates on Wednesday night's plane crash. American Airlines Flight 5342 had taken off from Wichita, Con, before colliding with a helicopter near a runway at Washington's Ronald Reagan National Airport. "I'm proud that this community is coming together in a time like this," Wu said at her second press conference of the day. "A tragic event that should unite us all to remember that life is precious." Governor Kelly said that Kansas officials were in communication with federal partners to investigate what caused the plane collision. "Both the mayor and I have been on the phone constantly since last night with representatives from the National Transportation Safety Board, from the governors of Virginia and Maryland and all sorts of other folks who are involved in this tragedy," Kelly said. "Here's what it takes to become an air traffic controller, a job considered stressful and tough." Wednesday night's fatal crash at Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport involving a commercial airplane and a Black Hawk military helicopter has drawn renewed attention to air traffic controllers and what role they may have played in the accident that is believed to have killed 67 people. The disaster, the cause of which remains under investigation, comes during a long-running nationwide shortage of air traffic controllers, and staffing may have played a factor. The control tower at Reagan Airport has been understaffed for years, the New York Times reported, and at the time of the crash, a controller who was in charge of helicopter traffic was also tasked with instructing planes, the Associated Press reported. Ideally, those jobs are handled by 2 controllers. American Airlines CEO says top priority is supporting loved ones of those who died in the crash. American Airlines CEO Robert Isom sent a letter to employees on Thursday that the airline's top priority was supporting the families of the passengers lost in Wednesday night's heartbreaking accident. "Right now, the strength of the entire airline is focused on taking care of the families and loved ones of those on board," Isom said. "I'm on the ground in D.C. along with members of our GO team, and we are deploying all of our resources to make sure we do everything we can to take care of the needs of the families and loved ones of our passengers and crew members," Isom said in the letter. "That is our priority." He also thanked first responders who continued recovery efforts. Wichita, Con, holds prayer vigil to remember crash victims. Locals in Wichita, Con, came together Thursday afternoon for a public prayer vigil at City Hall to remember the victims of the deadly collision between an American Airlines jet that took off from Wichita and collided with an Army helicopter on its descent into Reagan National Airport in Washington, D.C. "Tragedies like this remind us that we are one community. Whether a Wichitan, a Kansan or an American," Wichita Mayor Lily Wu said Thursday. "We are one community, and in times of struggle, we do come together in grief and sadness to lift one another." FAA says staffing was not normal in air traffic control tower at time of crash, reports. A preliminary report from the Federal Aviation Administration obtained by multiple news outlets said that staffing in the air traffic control tower at Reagan National Airport was not normal at the time of the mid-air collision on Wednesday. According to the Associated Press, one air traffic controller was working two positions at the time of the crash. The New York Times reported that the controller was managing both helicopters and planes in the vicinity. Father of plane's co-pilot, "This is undoubtedly the worst day of my life." The father of one of the two pilots on board the plane that collided with a military helicopter told Fox 5 in Atlanta that he is grieving the death of his 28-year-old son, Sam Lilly. "This is undoubtedly the worst day of my life," Timothy Lilly said. Sam Lilly, of Savannah, Georgia, was engaged and planned to get married in the fall, his father said. Timothy Lilly described himself as a longtime former Army helicopter pilot who is familiar with the air traffic in the Washington, D.C. area. "I was a helicopter pilot in the Army for 20 years. In the 90s, I used to fly in and out of the Pentagon regularly, and I can tell you if you are flying on the route over the Potomac and wearing night vision goggles, it's going to be very hard to see that plane. If you're not wearing the goggles, then you might have a chance," he said. Investigators have yet to determine what caused the deadly collision. U.S. officials said that the helicopter was on a routine nighttime training mission and that the crew was equipped with night vision goggles, but it's unclear whether they were using them at the time of the incident. NTSB official: "Too soon to speculate about what caused the crash." At the press briefing, National Transportation Safety Board member J. Todd Inman said it is too soon to say what caused the deadly mid-air collision between the commercial jet and military helicopter. Inman said that the NTSB investigative team will be on scene, as long as it takes, to determine, not just what happened, but why it happened, and to recommend changes to prevent it from happening again. "We will not be determining the probable cause of the accident while we are here on scene," he said. "Nor will we speculate about what may have caused this accident. The NTSB hopes to release a preliminary report on the crash within 30 days, Inman said. During a Q&A with reporters, Inman said investigators have not ruled out human error or mechanical failure as a possible cause. "We don't know enough facts yet to be able to rule in or out either," he said. Flight data recorders have not been recovered yet, NTSB says. The flight data recorders from the American Airlines jet and Army helicopter that collided Wednesday evening have not been recovered yet, the National Transportation Safety Board said Thursday. Captain Sully Sullenberger says crash is a reminder of how vigilant we have to be. Captain Chelsea Sully Sullenberger, who safely landed a passenger plane in the Hudson River in 2009, told the New York Times that Wednesday night's crash happened during an exceptionally safe period in aviation history but is a reminder of how vigilant we have to be. Before Wednesday, there hadn't been a fatal commercial plane crash in the U.S. in nearly 16 years. "We've had to learn important lessons literally with blood too often, and we had finally gotten beyond that, to where we could learn from incidents, and not accidents," Sullenberger said. The retired pilot and aviation expert also said Reagan National Airport, the destination of the American Airlines plane that collided with the Army helicopter, was built in the 1930s and is one of the nation's most challenging airports to navigate. Collision took place in congested D.C. airspace. Wednesday night's tragic collision involving an American Airlines jet and Army helicopter over the Potomac River near Reagan National Airport highlighted issues of congested airspace in Washington, D.C. The area has multiple military bases and 3 major airports, meaning military aircraft and passenger airplanes share the same airspace. Last year there were 2 near-miss incidents at Reagan National Airport that caused alarm involving civilian aircraft and coincided with a shortage of air traffic controllers. Reuters reports. Figure skating community mourns those lost in deadly crash. Members of the international skating community have been paying tribute Thursday to the victims of the fatal collision on Wednesday night between an Army helicopter and an American Airlines aircraft, which had reportedly been carrying several U.S. and Russian figure skaters along with their coaches and family members. 2-time figure skating Olympic medalist Nancy Kerrigan spoke to the media on Thursday. "I feel for the athletes, the skaters and their families," she said, "but anyone that was on that plane, not just the skaters because it's just such a tragic event. Tell people around you that you love them because you just never know." Former Olympic silver medalist Ashley Wagner posted a message on her Instagram story that read, "My heart breaks for my skating family today. I can't put into words what this feeling is. I'm horrified, heartbroken, devastated and shocked. It makes you realize that my heart goes out to, and condolences to the families simply are not enough." Former Olympic gold medalist Tara Lipinski wrote a message on her Instagram story that accompanied a screenshot of a news headline about the tragic crash. "It's unimaginable the loss," she wrote. "We will mourn their loss and always remember them. My heart is with all the families affected. That part one have no words for. Strength and love won't do it justice. So many of our own were on this tragic flight and my heart aches for them and for everyone part of this devastating accident." Witnesses describe hearing bangs, seeing sparks in the sky. Witnesses in the vicinity of the crash have been describing to various news outlets what they saw and heard. Ari Schulman, of Alexandria, Virginia, told CNN that he was driving home along a highway near Reagan National Airport looking at the line of planes coming in when he saw sparks flying on the underside of a plane. "I believe what I saw was the collision," Schulman said. "It looked like a Roman candle." Courtney Kane told the Washington Post she was at home at Joint Base Anacostia Bowling when she heard a bang outside. She looked out her window and saw a flash and immediately feared it might have been a plane crash. Those fears were soon realized when she saw news of the crash on television. "I'm honestly still shaking," Kane said. Another witness, Abadi Ismail, told Reuters that he was getting ready to go to bed at his home in South Washington, D.C., when he heard a loud bang. He said it was a very unusual sound, something you don't hear on a daily basis. Figure skater shared photo of American Airlines plane before takeoff. U.S. figure skater Spencer Lane, 16, was on board the American Airlines jet that collided with an Army helicopter. Spencer shared a photo aboard the jet on the runway to his Instagram story before it took off on Wednesday. Kansas congressional delegation, community, will feel the pain of this catastrophe for years to come.